The House will come to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I Mr. Gregorio, please call the roll.
Representatives Amabile, Arndt, Bacon, Baisley, Benavidez, Burnett, Byrd, Bockenfeld, Bradfield, Caraveo, Carver, Catlin, Cutter, Doherty, Duran. Representative Duran. Escar. Exum. Representative Exum. Representative Exum is excused. Froelich. Geithner. Gonzalez Gutierrez. Gray. Representative Gray. Representative Gray is excused. Hanks. Herod. Holtorf. Hooten. Jackson.
Here.
Judah.
Here.
Kennedy. Kip. Larson. Montine. Luck. Representative Luck is excused. Lynch. McCluskey. McCormick. McKean. McLaughlin.
Present. Present.
Michelson Janae.
Present.
Mullica. Neville. Ortiz. Pelton. Pico.
Here.
Ransom. Rich. Ricks.
Present.
Roberts. Sandridge. Sirota. Snyder. Soper. Sullivan. Tipper. Titone. Valdez A. Valdez D. Van Bever. Van Winkle. Weissman. Will. Williams. Woodrow. Woog. Young. And Mr. Speaker.
With 62 present, 62 present, 3 excused, we have a quorum. Representative Hanks, come on down.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Journal of Friday, March 19, 2021 be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
You have heard the motion. Thank you, Representative Hanks, that the journal be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no.
No.
The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Announcements and introductions. Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House State Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee will be meeting at 1:30 in LSBA to hear Senate Bill 26 and House Bill 1213.
Representative Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Finance Committee, we have an exciting day hearing several statutory revision bills. We'll be meeting today at 1:30, again in Committee Room 0112, hearing House Bill 1152, 1177, 1154, 1158, and 1203. So I'm looking forward to seeing you all. It will be a great afternoon.
Representative Tatone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Joint Technology Committee. We're meeting tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Representative Baisley, are you listening? Just want to make sure everyone knows. Thank you.
Representative Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And just a friendly reminder, tomorrow morning, 7:15, Bible study in the basement. Come by, get filled with the Word, and have some coffee.
Announcements and introductions. I have one. Representative Lynch is going to replace Representative Luck on finance today only. Representative Hooten.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I have received permission to be excused from floor work tomorrow, March 23rd. Thank you.
That's approved, Representative Hooten. Further announcements and introductions. Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and esteemed colleagues. Over the weekend, we did celebrate, and most of you may know that many of the cattle feeders and cattle growers sponsored a feed over here in Civic Center Park. We contracted 10 food trucks, businesses that have been impacted by COVID-19. They were very glad to come. They served, I believe, over 1,300, maybe 1,300 to 1,500 meals to the homeless people, to the citizens here in Denver, Colorado. If there are any tourists or any people passing by, I witnessed this. It was a gracious donation made by the people that I represent to support the homeless, to provide them a protein-based diet that would give them nutrition. I believe it was a very generous contribution made by my people, and I just wanted to recognize and thank all the people that participated in that as we try to promote the livelihood for Colorado ranchers and farmers all over the state, and also try to feed the hungry as we work to feed the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Holtorf. Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, just to remember, a reminder, you've probably already got the information if you RSVP'd in time, but this Thursday from 12:30 to 1 will be the Intellectual Developmental Disabilities Awareness Day. It's all going to be virtual. If you have questions, come find me.
See no further announcements or introductions. That brings us to third reading of bills. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1055.
House Bill 1055 by Representative Woodrow, also Senator Pedersen, concerning allowing compensation for a school district board of education by written resolution.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1055 on third reading and final passage. Representative Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning, all. I plan on abstaining from voting on the basis of House Rule 21C.
Under Rule 21C, that is granted. Thank you, Representative Bacon. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1055 on third reading, final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1055 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. For those participating remotely, Representative Judah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Judah votes yes. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Pico, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Pico votes no. Please close the machine. With 40 aye votes, 23 no votes, and 2 excused, House Bill 1055 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Representative Jackson, Judah, Michelson-Janae, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1117.
House Bill 1117 by Representatives Lantin and Gonzalez Gutierrez, also Senators Gonzalez and Rodriguez, concerning the ability of local governments to promote the development of new affordable housing units pursuant to their existing authority to regulate land use within their territorial boundaries.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1117 on third reading, final passage.
Question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1117 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Judah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Judah votes yes. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Pico, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Pico votes no. Representative Bacon and Lynch. Please close the machine. With 41 aye votes, 23 no votes, and 1 excused, House Bill 1117 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Representative Judah, McLaughlin, Michelson-Janae, and Jackson, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1109.
House Bill 1109 by Representatives Tatone and Soper, also Senator Bridges, concerning the Broadband Deployment Board and in connection therewith modifying the composition of the board, requiring the board to develop a request for proposal process for deploying broadband into critically underserved areas in the state, and requiring the board to give additional consideration to proposed projects that would include discounted service for low-income households.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1109 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1109 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Judah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Judah votes yes. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Pico, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Pico votes no. Representative Benavides, Bockenfield, Catlin, Geithner, Lynch, McKean, and me. Whoops. Sorry about that. Please close the machine. With 47 aye votes, 17 no votes, and 1 excused, House Bill 1109 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Representative McLaughlin, Michelson-Janae, Jackson, Judah, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the House Bill 1103.
House Bill 1103 by Representatives Cutter and McLaughlin, also Senators Pedersen and Quorum, concerning implementing the recommendations of the Media Literacy Advisory Committee in the elementary and secondary education created pursuant to House Bill 19-1110.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1103 on third reading and final passage.
Thank you. And members, we are on third reading. Please be quiet in the chamber. Representative Baisley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to make one last comment on this bill. While I greatly appreciate the passage of the amendments to this bill that softened things quite a bit, gave the people a voice, which I appreciate. So thank you, Representative McLaughlin in particular, for the passage of the amendments. More generally, I'm concerned, and I need to express my concern because these are the sort of things that give us nervousness regarding sending our kids to public school. What comes with that? So I want to alert my fellow members here of a Senate bill that's could be considered a complementary bill to this bill, Senate Bill 132, that will create a regulation of digital communications.
And Representative Baisley, let's just keep it to the bill that's before us today.
I understand, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for that. I'm speaking to that as a correlation bill to this one, a companion bill to this one, to this bill that we're talking about right now. That's my purpose, because it is a government agency that is passing judgment on what is truth in media. That's the concern. We have to be cautious about how we tread on this. We, as the government, are not the arbiters of truth. There is one truth. There are absolutes, and it's not us. So before we vote, I just felt that I should come up and express that caution. It's a caution I'm taking for myself, and I'll ask all of you to share as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, members, for indulging me. When this was on second readings, I wasn't able to be here and provide comment as I originally intended to, so I'll just take just a little bit of time here, not my full 10 minutes or anything like that. But I did want to speak in opposition to this bill, and I want to echo the comments from Representative Baisley. I do appreciate the amendments that were put in here that do kind of address some of the concerns that the minority had brought up during debate. Although as it relates to page 3, where the amendment here talks about implementing a procedure through which people may provide comment on the materials that are going to be in the resource bank, I still feel that this isn't quite where it needs to be. I think the public certainly has every right to comment on any public policy or provide input on anything that we do. But the fact that there's no mechanism in place to actually allow for the public to organize in such a way to either put resources into the resource bank or take away resources within the resource bank, I think is a bit troublesome. And then with respect to the overall bill, my concern is that we are, in a way, creating policy that doesn't allow for our system to teach kids how to think, but rather what to think. And there's been great debate and great discussion about what was specifically listed out within the resource bank as it relates to the materials and resources in there. And I think there is something to be said about the slanted nature of that material. And if, at the very least, we're not providing some sort of counterbalance so that other material from a different ideological bent is also not put into place, then I'm not sure how we can look at it other than that this is an opportunity to provide teachers and our students a particular worldview that they may not accept, or their parents, more importantly, may not accept. I have said it from the very beginning on this particular bill. I think more information, more speech, more debate has always served our system. It has certainly served our society. I think back to definitely the '60s, where you had great democratic leaders of that era talk about the importance of free speech and free thought and the diversity of different experiences and backgrounds, and I wonder if we're getting away from that. And as I had stated previously, when we first had a debate on this particular issue, I'm old school in that regard. I think if we have more of those conversations, then it will ultimately get us to a place where we find truth. And that's why we have a great and important responsibility to always be promoting more speech. The cure, if you will, to bad speech and disinformation is more information. It's more speech. It's more debate. And if we're as a body trying to dictate policy that directs our students specifically to information that we've handpicked before we can even engage in a robust debate, then that's going to serve us, that's going to be a disservice to us and to our children. I think there's been great points made by the proponents that there is disinformation, that there is bad actors out there in our society, and we want to try and help our children, wade through that. But we shouldn't do that at the expense of one of the bedrock principles, of our society, and that happens to do with the ability of people to exchange ideas, even if they're bad. If they're bad ideas, let's talk about them, because ultimately when we talk about it and we seek truth, the good ideas will rise to the top. And that's really what we should be promoting in our public policy, and I don't think this bill does that. In fact, I think it probably has the opposite effect. And so I would ask that everyone in this chamber consider those points and join me in voting no on this bill. Thank you.
Is there further discussion on House Bill 1103? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1103 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Gregorio, please open up the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Judah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Judah votes yes. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Pico, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Pico votes no. Representative Holtorf, please close the machine. With 41 aye votes, 23 no votes, and 1 excused, House Bill 1103 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Representative Judah, Jackson, Michelson-Janae, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Representative Kipp, co-sponsor. For some reason, her machine wasn't working. Representative Kennedy, co-sponsor as well. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the House Bill 1147.
House Bill 1147 by Representatives Valdez, D. and Van Winkle, also Senators Hansen and Simpson, concerning simplification of the regulatory requirements for continuing education of professional architects.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the passage of House Bill 1147 on third reading, final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1147 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Judah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Judah votes yes. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Pico, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Pico votes yes. Representative Bockenfeld and Lynch. Representative Lynch. Please close the machine. With 64 aye votes, no votes, and 1 excused, House Bill 1147 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Representative McLaughlin, Michelson-Janae, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the House Bill 1204.
House Bill 1204 by Representative Snyder, also Senators Holbert and Janal, concerning the treatment of a marijuana licensee-owned business that provides employment services to a commonly controlled marijuana business as a single employing unit.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1204 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1204 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Judah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Judah votes yes. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Michelson Janae, how do you vote?
Janae, how do you vote? Yes.
Representative Michelson Janae votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Pico, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Pico votes no. Representative Benavides and Representative Tipper. Please close the machine. With 50 aye votes, 14 no votes, and 1 excused, House Bill 1204 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Representative Judah and Michelson Janae, co-sponsor. Judah and Michelson Janae. Oh, you got it. Nice job, Mr. Gregorio. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the House Bill 1165.
House Bill 1165 by Representatives Carver and Duran, also Senators Gardner and Lee, concerning assistance for victims of strangulation who receive medical benefits, examinations.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage, I move House Bill 1165 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1165 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Judah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Judah votes yes. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Michelson Janae, how do you vote?
Janae, how do you vote? Yes.
Representative Michelson Janae votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Pico, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Pico votes yes. Please close the machine. With 64 aye votes, no votes, and 1 excused, House Bill 1165 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Representative Jackson, McLaughlin, Michelson Janae, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. The next order of business is General Orders, second reading of bills. Representative Doherty. You have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, Representative Doherty will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. Okay. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee reports are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the majority leader. The coat rule is relaxed. Now, Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 211129.
House Bill 1129 by Representatives McLaughlin and Bradfield, also Senators Bridges and Story, concerning extension of the deadline by which teachers must complete training in teaching reading.
Representative Bradfield.
Madam Chair, thank you. Madam Chair, I'd like to move House Bill 1129. There is no committee report, and this presentation, I'd like for it to begin with Representative McLaughlin.
To the bill. Representative McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Bradfield and I had several questions brought up in the Education Committee, so we want to take a few minutes to make sure all questions are answered. Colorado's Reading to Ensure Academic Development, or READ Act, was first passed in 2012. It was designed to ensure all children in Colorado reach grade level proficiency in reading by the end of the third grade. Evaluated again in 2019, it was clear changes to the bill needed to be made as districts were not seeing the improvement they wanted. Legislators added accountability measures for READ Act funds, added reporting requirements so stakeholders could see which interventions worked best, and amped up the training for teachers using research-based practices for teaching reading. Current law says that all K-3 teachers must complete the training by the beginning of the 2020-2021 school year. This bill is asking for a second year to complete the testing, where educators must finish by the beginning of the 22-23 school year. It is permissive and requires no fiscal note. Since some were wondering what choices educators have for the training, I'll explain here. Each requires about 45 hours of class time. They can take the CDE provided training, which is either online or through face-to-face training. Teachers don't need to be working with students at the time to benefit from this training. The online version is at the educator's own pace, and the face-to-face training has been adapted to deliver using a live platform. Or they can use an approved training program listed on the CDE website. Or they can take an undergraduate or graduate course in evidence-based reading. Or they can have a Colorado reading teacher or reading specialist endorsement. Or they can take an approved licensure renewal course in evidence-based reading. Or, finally, they can take an approved district or BOCES required course in evidence-based reading. And now Representative Bradfield will explain some of the challenges faced to get all teachers trained.
Thank you, Representative McLaughlin.
Representative Bradfield.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For all of those different types of training, I want to let you know that in the state of Colorado, there are approximately 23,000 teachers who teach kindergarten through third grade. As of March 12th of this year, 12,798 teachers were enrolled in the CDE teaching reading online program, and only 1,130 have completed it. In addition, 400 teachers across the state have signed up for in-person training through CDE, but only 138 have completed. The purpose of this bill is to extend the deadline out one more year to the beginning of the 22-23 school year. It is also important to state that at no point in this 2 years will any school have any of their READ Act per pupil dollars affected at all. And I turn it back to Representative McLaughlin.
Representative
That says it
McLaughlin.
all. And I don't know if there's anybody up there with questions. I can't see.
Representative Larson.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you.
Excellent. So, members, I just wanted to come down and give a quick explanation for the no vote in committee here. First of all, I do want to thank the sponsors for bringing the bill. This bill certainly isn't without merit. This is essentially giving an additional year to meet the requirements that we, as a body, voted to put in place in 2019 for the implementation of the new READ Act. The no vote here is that there's a longer story behind the READ Act. This is something that has been going on in the state in one form or another for the past 8 years. It was a rather egregious failure on our half of implementing the original READ Act. In 2019, we came back, solved a lot of those problems, put some more accountability into the READ Act, which is a great thing, and then we get a 2-year extension for these teachers to be trained in these new pedagogies. But now we are further kicking that out another year, and frankly, this is a saga that should have been put to bed a long time ago. We are 8 years overdue at the very least, and an additional year to get these reading trainings in place in order to receive this money just seems beyond the pale, and frankly, a real disservice to the kids that have really been hurting for these early reading interventions. That was the reason for the no vote. Again, COVID certainly was an extraordinary circumstance, and if there hadn't been that backstory beforehand, it would have been a different vote. I do understand why it's being brought, but even with all that being said, I would still ask for a no vote. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1129. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1129 is adopted. Mr. Gregorio, please read House Bill 1148. The title of House Bill 1046.
House Bill 1046 by Representatives Arndt and Catlin, also Senators Fields and Sonnenberg, concerning the use of a water right obtained through a mutual ditch corporation.
Representative Arndt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee report. And, I also move 1046 and the committee report.
To the committee report.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. In the committee, we had L001 was adopted. It was a strike below to meet the requests of the extensive stakeholder process, and I urge a yes vote.
Any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is House Bill 1046. The adoption of the committee report.
All
those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. On to the bill.
Okay, thank you. This is a good example of how when stakeholders come together to agree on something, they can and they will. Thank you to the Water Committee, community, who did that so ably, and I urge a yes vote on this bill.
Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
Honor to serve with you.
Thank you. Members, this is an opportunity for you to see what can happen and what should happen in regards to some of the legislation that we work on here in this building. We started out by giving a framework for people to start discussing the idea of mutual ditch companies, and people that are in the water business picked up the challenge and took it upon themselves to start drafting wording that they could cooperate on, that they could agree on. Regardless if you are a farmer or a corporate entity, this is something that came together and was brought to us and saying, we can and will support this. This is what we can be doing in regards to our natural resources and particularly the water in the state of Colorado. This is a good bill. Vote yes.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the question before us. Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair, esteemed colleagues. I want to say that this is an impressive piece of legislation, and the two bill sponsors should be commended for their efforts working together. Number one, in a bipartisan way. Number two, in going through something that is so difficult. But the point I wanted to make here with this piece of legislation as we move forward, in agriculture, in farming, and in ranching, we do something very unique oftentimes, and that's help each other out. When your neighbor needs something and they ask for help, you're going to help them. You're going to reach out, you're going to do what you can. This concept that is codified in this piece of legislation has been going on for 150 plus years, ladies and gentlemen, and it never had to be written in statute or law because we just helped each other out. It was a secret handshake. It was a code of the West. It's just how we do things. Now we have it codified, and I greatly thank the bill sponsors for doing that out of necessity because that way of the country was coming into jeopardy. And you hear me talking a lot about the rural-urban divide. Well, if you don't do this, you drive a wedge in that even further. So I want to thank the bill sponsors for this. I'm a unanimous yes, and I think this shows a couple things. It shows bipartisanship, and it shows urban and rural issues coming together and finding a solution. And Representative Arndt, you are my champion today, and Representative Catlin, as co-bill sponsor, is my champion today for farmers all across Colorado, especially in my backyard. Thank you very much for this. I will be a unanimous and resounding yes.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1046. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1046 passes. What? She said? Members, if you could please be a little quieter, that would be very helpful. Thank you. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1148.
House Bill 1148 by Representatives Bockenfeld and Michael C. Janae, also Senators Fields and Smallwood, concerning the distribution of an annual report regarding the Colorado State Fair and in connection therewith, changing the annual reporting deadline and requiring that the report be submitted to all members of the General Assembly.
Representative Brockenfield.
Representative Brockenfield.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
Honor to serve with you.
Honored to serve with you.
And I see my co-prime sponsor, Representative Michael Sinjane, videoing in, and I'm honored to present this bill. I would like to move House Bill 21-1148. There is no committee report.
To the bill.
I'm sorry, Madam.
To the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This particular bill, under current law, the Colorado State Fair Authority is required to provide its annual report to the Governor and the House and the Senate Agriculture Committees by October 31st. The bill moves that reporting deadline to January 31st, which happens to be 10 days after the Legislative Audit Committee releases the authority's financial audit, whichever is later, and requires that the report be provided to the governor and all 100 members of the General Assembly. It passed the Agriculture, Livestock, and Water Committee at 10-0. It is a bill that's recommended by the Joint Legislative Audit Committee. And at this time, Representative Michelson Janae, is there anything else that you would like to add?
Representative Michelson Janae.
Absolutely. Representative Michelson Janae.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Bockenfeld, for so eloquently stating what basically is a request from the Legislative Audit Committee to align the state fair's reporting so that we can monitor it in the Legislative Audit Committee. And I just want to give a high five to the state fair. Things have been getting better and better every year in terms of operations, and we have great hope for the future of the state fair. Please vote yes.
Members, I ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion? Madam Majority Leader?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to verify, and I think based off of what Representative Michelson Janae just stated, I was not in these audit committee meetings. I know there's been issues in the past with reporting deadlines versus audit reports, and I just want to make sure that the Colorado State Fair was actually in tune with this and are ready to meet this change deadline, and that everything is clear with them all.
Representative Michelson Janae?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Majority Leader Escar, for always paying such close attention to the State Fair. And yes, they are in complete alignment.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Representative Valdez D.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank the bill sponsors for bringing this forward to the House Ag, because we need to make sure that the audit date is correct, and we're getting a report on this, because the Colorado State Fair is not only important to Pueblo, but Southern Colorado, and to a lot of individuals in the state of Colorado, so thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1148. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1148 passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to Senate Bill 79.
Senate Bill 79 by Senator Sonnenberg, also Representatives Pelton and Valdez D, concerning the sale of animals for consumption to informed end consumers in a manner that exempts the sale from certain laws.
Representative Valdez D.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 79 with the committee report.
To the Agriculture Committee report.
Yes, we added in this amendment that not only has a disclaimer that helps our producer, but also the consumer with the signature, and we added ELK into the amendments. With that, I ask for your support.
Oh. Is there any further discussion regarding the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Agriculture Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. To the bill. Representative Valdez D.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say thank you that this is a good bill, not only to help the consumers and producers in the state in House District 62, as we've seen this past weekend, continuing to support our agriculture community, but our farmers and ranchers throughout the state, and more than anything else, putting meat in your freezer to put meat on the table. So thank you.
Representative Pelton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yeah, this is a great bill. Out in the country, we've been doing this for a long time already. Maybe we haven't been doing it legally. So this bill codifies it in statute. And as long as it's just direct sales and they own a share of that animal, it's perfectly legal now. So, and there has to be a brand inspection, but all the share owners are on that brand inspection.
Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to point out something about this bill. First, I want to thank the bill sponsors, Representative Pelton, Representative Valdez. Now, I'm not going to go as far as Representative Pelton and say that anything's done illegally, because it's not. But traditionally in the past, what this is when we raise any kind of meat, it'll go to the local purveyor and processor, and oftentimes that is divided up either in halves and quarters or eighths, and you will share it with your family members. You'll share it with your employees if you're a cattle rancher. You'll share it with extended family and or friends, and you may even sell some excess meat to neighbors and other people that may live in town. Everybody knows the quality of this product is exceptional. This is the most Colorado proud bill I've seen all year, because this gets to the essence of Colorado proud. When we raise something here in Colorado, Now with this piece of legislation, we can allow anybody to participate in that legally. In the Ag Committee, they went through a very painful process and went through some amendments that were accepted. The leadership of the Ag Chair and my ranking member, I saw some leadership that was exceptional because they worked through difficult amendments and they made them happen in committee. Nobody turned their back and rejected any good ideas from any party. That is what I think committee work should be. And when we left that committee room, we have this. And this is a home run for Colorado. It's a home run for Colorado ranchers and farmers. It now will allow anybody to participate and say, hey, I'd like a quarter. I'd like half a hog. I'd like a quarter of beef. I'd like a quarter of lamb. That is Colorado. That's the Colorado meat industry. That is Colorado proud, and it supports rural Colorado. So thank you to my two bill sponsors for stepping up, being proud of what you do out in the country, and bringing forth a bill that is as Colorado proud as you can get in this Gold Dome.
Representative Neville.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. This is great for rural Colorado, but too, this is also wonderful suburban Colorado. So let me put a little suburban boy spin on this. So right now, I'm lucky, I'm fortunate enough to have some good friends, they're really close friends that raise their own cattle, and every year I purchase at least a half a cow from them, and I'm able to do that because I know them and they raise that bill. But had I not had that relationship, I can't just go to the local butcher shop and purchase that same half a cow that's actually locally raised on my own without having that relationship. This bill would actually allow you to do that. Maybe actually you don't want a whole half, maybe you want just certain cuts, you could do that. Or part of me is thinking I really want to try bison in the future, but I don't want to buy a whole half or eighth of a bison. This would actually give me the ability to do that. And then not to mention too, I think we're actually going to, by doing this, we're actually going to have more people that can actually do the processing come forward and start their own small businesses. So even if you're in hunting season, when I was in hunting, we got some elk, and my goodness, it was really tough to find some people that could process that elk. I think you're actually going to have more folks that are able to do that. We've tried getting at the heart of this problem of what's real beef and what's not real beef, and we have some issues, with internationally where they bring beef in from Brazil and Argentina, and it's fed hormones and all sorts of stuff, and it's a real problem. We've tried getting at that in the past, but this is essentially a free market solution that kind of solves that, because we can actually make sure that it's Colorado raised beef and buy it and source it locally, and it gives people the opportunity to open up a shop, not just even in rural Colorado, but if someone wants to in Castle Rock or Denver, open up a specialty shop and sell Colorado sourced beef directly to the consumer. It allows them. And so wonderful bill. It is great for rural Colorado, but it's also going to be great for suburban Colorado and great for my taste buds. So thanks for bringing it.
Any further discussion? Representative Geithner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I also rise in support of Senate Bill 79. I do feel that this is probably one of the best ag bills that we'll see this session, or at least it's come so far. My thanks to the sponsors for bringing it. We just did a rather robust showing of support for our ag community just this past weekend. I think this bill continues that showing of our support for ag. And representing House District 19, obviously, I have a considerable portion of rural El Paso. And so just wanted to come up here and thank the sponsors for bringing the bill. I will be in support.
Representative Sandridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too stand in support of this. Obviously, in my area is a condensed district. We don't have any agriculture, but boy, do we like eating meat in our area. So we're the consumers. This is a free market bill, and I love free market bill. Let's cut out these supply chains and this red tape and go directly to where we can serve the people better. Brings down the prices too in the long run. So it's a great bill. We need more like this, and I stand in support. Thank you.
And Representative Will.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to come up and speak in support of this bill. This has been a long time coming. It really has, and it affects about everyone I know and everyone I represent in my rural district. So Really happy for, thank the sponsors for bringing this bill. It's a good bill. Thank you.
Representative Valdez D.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to say I have some elk producers in House District 62, and not only does this help them, but also the pork producers, the lamb producers, the cattle producers. This continues to help individuals in agriculture on a daily basis, but also helps the consumer, making sure that they're knowing what they're getting the right, precise of cut, whether it be a full, a half, or a quarter. So with that, I ask your support on Senate Bill 79.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 79. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Senate Bill 79 passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1178.
House Bill 1178 by Representatives Pico and Valdez D., also Senators Woodward and Zenzinger, concerning correcting non-substantive errors in the Colorado Marijuana Code.
Representative Valdez D.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1178, and there's no committee report.
To the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a good bill. This came out of Statutory Advisory Committee. We're just correcting the non-substantive changes in the Colorado Marijuana Code, and it does not impact the revenue or expenditures of any state agency as assessed or having no fiscal impact. It's a good bill, and ask for your support moving forward on House Bill 1178.
Representative Pico.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to add, this was appropriately heard in a joint committee, and also corrects references to federal statutes and other references. Ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1178. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. House Bill 1178 passes.
Thank you.
Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of Senate Bill 24.
Senate Bill 24 by Senators Jaquez, Lewis, and Rankin, also Representative Sullivan, concerning recognition of the 30th day of March as a commemorative state holiday and in connection therewith designating the 13th day of March as Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Day.
Representative Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 21024 and ask for a favorable recommendation.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the question. Oh,
I could talk on it.
Representative Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is some of the statistics, some of the information about the Vietnam War. Was fought from 1961, 1975. Over 2.7 million American soldiers served. A total of over 9 million were active duty during that time. I was one of those who was active duty during that time. My DD 214 shows me as taking active duty on August the 28th, 1974. In the state of Colorado, we had 41 prisoners of war. 24 of them are still unaccounted for. Over 58,000 members of the United States Armed Forces were killed during that time, including 623 Coloradans. In March the 29th, 1973 was the last day that we had combat troops in Vietnam. In 2017, on March the 29th, Congress designated Vietnam Veterans Day. It's not a federal holiday, but it's a day that we acknowledge. The passage of this law would make March 30th Vietnam Vets Welcome Home Day. It was a much different time in the 60s and the 70s. That's the time when I was growing up. We weren't welcomed home the way that some of the soldiers were during after World War II. Certainly the presentations we've had for our veterans coming home from Afghanistan and Iraq and all of that type of stuff. So I think something like this would be very appropriate. Also, just to let you know, during World War II...
Excuse me, Representative Sullivan. Members, if we could keep it down, we're talking about Vietnam veterans here, so if we could please keep it down. Thank you, Representative Sullivan, back to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. During World War II, the men and women that we sent to fight and defend democracy in the United States, their average ages were 29. The boys and girls that we sent over to Vietnam during that time, the average age was 19. So these men and women are still with us today. This would be an appropriate remembrance of all that they did and how much we support them. And I ask for an aye vote on Senate Bill 21024.
Representative Neville.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, sometimes people get surprised at my votes with different military and veterans bills because I often tell people that veterans aren't looking for a handout. They want to be honored and get what they're actually owed, not a handout. This bill is not a handout. This bill is a wonderful bill that actually brings honor to our Vietnam vets. And I've got a really special place in my heart for our Vietnam veterans because when they came back, they didn't come back to a great hero's welcome home. They came back to animosity, shame. Yet they made sure that when I came back, I had a hero's welcome home. When I got off of that plane from Iraq, the first hand that I shook was a Vietnam vet waiting outside of that plane. Not only that, when I had to escort one of my soldiers to his final resting place, they were trying to protest his memorial. And it was a bunch of Vietnam vets that stood outside of his memorial and his funeral and kept those cowards at bay so that we could actually honor my soldier. And so I think it's about time that we honor our Vietnam vets. And I tell them that thank you for the welcome home that I have. It's time for us GWOT vets to pick up that flag and carry on what they have done for us. And so thank you for this bill. I just couldn't be more proud of our Vietnam vets and what they have done for our country. I urge an aye vote.
Representative Valdez A.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is an honor to serve with you. Anyway, I'll just proceed there. Soper, I got mine.
Honor to serve with you.
That was a get back for the Soper thing. Anyway, members, I just want to come down here as the son of a Vietnam veteran, a guy who came home and never, ever, ever spoke of the service that he did in Vietnam. He saw terrible things. He lost many friends and came home to a situation where he wasn't allowed to display the pride that so many of our veterans have been able to do coming back from foreign wars. I think that this is just a small step in the right direction in recognizing the service of our Vietnam veterans. You know, we heard in committee that they used the terminology conflict a lot for Vietnam. It was a war. And now that my father's being treated for post-traumatic stress disorder, I'm hearing the stories. They're horrible. And I just feel so bad that he had to spend so many years keeping to himself his bravery, all of his friends that died in the war, and all of the many people who weren't honored for their service. So I think I want to thank the sponsors for bringing this, Representative Sullivan, but I think we need to continue to fight to recognize our Vietnam veterans.
Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to give you one more chance here. It's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you.
Thank you, ma'am. Esteemed colleagues, I want to reach out to the sponsor of this bill, Representative Sullivan. I will tell you that what he is doing is a noble act. It is doing something that should have happened when those soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines came home. But because of the conflict in this country, it could not be done. I served with Vietnam veterans, both while on active duty and in the reserve component. I have similar stories as Representative Neville, and I'll never forget going through Fort Dix, and I have the same story. The first people that extended a hand were the Vietnam Veterans Association of America chapter members, and they were there, and they told us, we will never let what happened to you, we will never let that happen to you, what happened to us. And they meant it, because they were there in strength. They supported us because they knew when you come back from a war zone, it's a very difficult thing. And they knew how important it was when we got off that plane to shake a welcoming hand of someone that understands the loss, understands the tragedy of so many of your brothers and sisters dying to defend the Constitution of the United States. In many cases, you stop counting because it's too hard. But this honors our Vietnam veterans. I thank the bill sponsor for what he brings forth, and we can never repay our combat veterans enough for what they have done to protect what is so precious in this country, the freedom and liberties that we enjoy over any other country in the world. Thank you, Representative Sullivan, for this bill, and vote yes.
Representative Carver.
I rise in support of this bill, and a special thanks to Representative Sullivan for bringing it. My uncle served 4 terms in Vietnam, even though only one was required, but most of those were as a first sergeant. And you've heard some of the comments already made, which I won't repeat. But, you know, we've learned a lot about PTSD with Iraq and Afghanistan, but so many of the issues that the Vietnam vets had as their service were as severe, but less well known. And returned to a country who was divided over the war, and it was a very difficult time. So thank you, Rep. Sullivan, for introducing this, sponsoring this. This is an important acknowledgement of the service of our Vietnam vets.
Representative Valdez D.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it's an honor to serve with you.
And it's an honor to serve with you.
You know, I want to first thank the bill sponsors, Representative Sullivan, for bringing this bill forward, and thank all our men and women in the military. My father served in the Korea War, but I also have family, friends, and neighbors who served in the Vietnam War, and the PTSD, the trauma, the anxiety that they do have when they came back, it's still real. And I want to thank them, but also recognize them. I also want to recognize the city of heroes in Pueblo, but also in the San Luis Valley. The men and women who continue to serve, but also the stories that they have are real. We have a lot of issues, not even with veteran suicide, and the stories that we need to hear and continue to support them on all aspects. So with that, I thank the bill sponsor for bringing this forward, and appreciate all our men and women in the military and our veterans. Thank you.
Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. The little town that I come from seems to have shipped a lot of its young men, particularly to Vietnam. A number of my friends, and I'm glad that it was spoken here in front of you today. World War II soldiers went 28, 29 years old was the average. Vietnam ended up at about an average of 19. There's a song I know where there's a line in it that said, We shipped him off to Vietnam on his senior trip. That's true. I sat in my graduation between two young men that were on their way. One didn't come home. You know, that was painful. But some of the kids that came home had a really hard time after they got here. And people would not say to them, congratulations, thank you, we love you, we need you, we want you. And that might have been tougher on them then than what they thought they had fought in Vietnam. I don't want to carry on too long. I just want you to know that this bill moves me. It does something for my heart. And I hope that it will do something for the hearts of the young men and women that took that task on. Some of them volunteered. Some of them were drafted. But they all served, and they all still carry a lot of that pain. I guess I don't know because I didn't serve. But it looks like pain to me. And one of the things that they did in order to deal with that pain is they decided that there is no way, as long as they are here, that any troop that comes home from any war will be treated like they were. It's been said they took it upon themselves to welcome those folks home. They took it upon themselves to say, you are one of us. Come stand beside me. You know, that's what makes me proud of this whole country, is that's the kind of thing we do without being told. Individuals that know what that pain was, that know what that cost was, when that young man or woman gets off that plane or off that train or off that bus or out of his folks' car, they're there. They're there to put their arm around him and say, welcome home. Job well done. We need more of that. And I think this bill goes towards that. And this is one that, I wish I'd have known that it was out in the ether before it got here, because I'd like to have helped. So today, this is my small way of trying to help. Thank you. Thank you for giving me a moment, and thank you for the young guys that I knew. Thank you.
Representative Sandridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
Honor to serve with you.
No, it's going to be a test. Well, I want to thank Representative Sullivan for bringing this bill forward. I think I told Representative Ortiz he had the best pro-military bill of the year, but I think he got some competition now. I've had a lot of family who served in Vietnam, and what I learned from that era was these soldiers went out there. They didn't start the conflict. They didn't design it. But when they got home, they got blamed for it, didn't they? It seems like that conflict didn't have a clear plan, and when they got sent home, the plan was even less clear. A few others actually tapped on what I was going to say. Back then, post-traumatic stress disorder was not a thing. Well, we all know it was a thing, but it wasn't diagnosed. Back then, you weren't being tough if you complained. You weren't being a man if you complained. So you kept it in. So I saw that in some of my family members that went over there and fought in that conflict. So I want to thank Representative Sullivan. I think the only issue, because I got to have an issue with every bill, I do. Only issue I have with this bill is a few decades too late. And I think it's a great thing, and I'm happy to support it, and we need more bills like this. Thank you.
Representative Froelich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you.
Wow, super fast. Thank you. I just want to rise and speak a little bit about Representative Michael Janae's father, Alan Kalish. He signed up to fight in the Vietnam War. He signed up in the Navy, and he served proudly. And this is a long time coming. We're very proud of him and the other vets that served in the Vietnam War, and we're grateful to Rep. Sullivan for bringing this bill in honor of Rep. Michelson Janae's father, Alan Kalish. We say thank you.
Representative Van Beber.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you all.
It's an honor to serve with you.
And it's an honor to serve with you all here in the House. By the sheer virtue of the fact that you are all sitting in this House chamber today, I can just about absolutely guarantee that you've all done something already before this point that you can probably hang your hat on and say, I've done a job, and it was well done. This bill is one of them. And for me, I'm very blessed to have said I've taken thousands of students to Washington, D.C. and their families to witness the memorials there firsthand. I wanted those students to witness the families who are still grieving, who are still experiencing the loss, and the veterans who are still remembering their experiences. I want them to look at those names engraved on that wall at the Vietnam Memorial, at the World War II Memorial, at the Korean Memorial, at Iwo Jima. And I want them to understand that the price of freedom is so very, very high. And if the names on that wall those are the people who paid the ultimate price so that we can stand here today in honor of this bill and do the work that we do. I'm sure that the people on that wall would thank us for this moment in time. And you're right, former representatives who have come up here and said this bill is long overdue. And I'm also convinced that the people who are not on that wall, people like my father, who served on Strategic Air Command in a top secret capacity, whose names will never be on that wall, would also thank you. So thank you for bringing this to the forefront, that we always remember the price of freedom is so very high, and that we always remember the people that paid the ultimate price for us to be here today.
Representative Ortiz. Oh, Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Rep. Sullivan, for the bill. I guess I'm here because, like Rep. Valdez said, my father was also a Vietnam veteran. And, you know, maybe it's fitting that I don't talk about that very much because he didn't talk about his service and his time there very much when I was a younger person. Probably twice in my first 30 years of life, I can remember him saying anything about it. And if you know Vietnam veterans in your life, you have probably had a similar type of experience. I appreciate some of the statistics that Rep. Sullivan shared, you know, a few other things about that generation and that sort of cohort of service members. You know, as Rep. Neville alluded to, when folks were coming back from Iraq in the early aughts, I don't think even then, closer to our time now, we had the dialogue of post-traumatic stress. We really understood that. We were even as able to talk about that as a culture as we are now, which is still imperfect. A fortiori, 35 years prior, I mean, I think there was no awareness, there was no discourse about that, but it was there for real. Another thing that I think every cohort of veterans suffers is just exposure to, you know, God knows what out there on the battlefield. We know things about depleted uranium from Iraq, and obviously in the era of Vietnam, it was a whole lot of Agent Orange, and that wreaked health consequences on people who served there that in some cases took decades to manifest. You know, anyone here who knows Vietnam veterans in your life, you may know that in a very personal way. You may be aware of those health consequences. I think a lot of us know that there are not many World War II veterans left. Time is taking them from us. Periodically, you know, around things like Memorial Day, we find ways to honor them. You know, our Vietnam veterans are getting older too. we're starting to lose them as a society. One of my father's best Army buddies passed away a number of years ago from a kind of cancer traceable to Agent Orange and other substances like that. So I think I just want to urge that if in your family, in your circle of friends, if you know veterans who served in Vietnam, try to talk to them. Don't press, but do try to hear from them what they experienced, learn a few things from it while you can. Because I think war, among other things, teaches us that time in life can be fickle. So thank you, Rep. Sullivan, for bringing this bill to establish a bit of very appropriate remembrance for people who served in that very terrible conflict.
Assistant Minority Leader Geithner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members. I rise in support of this bill as well. As a veteran, I heard my uncle speak a couple times. He had 3.5 tours in Vietnam. He served in the Navy. He didn't really talk too much about some of those experiences. We just knew and appreciated his service, and that's not uncommon amongst veterans. The men and women that served during this period definitely weren't given the same level of respect and appreciation that I certainly received when I came home. And so I think that it's very befitting that this bill comes before us now, and agree that it is rather late, that it should have come much sooner. I think we all have folks in our districts that have served, and specifically those that have served in Vietnam. I know I have a very dear friend, Jack Wendler. He served in the Battle of Hamburger Hill. And the stories that he's had the opportunity to share with me, I've always appreciated. And definitely his service and the service of all men and women that served in Vietnam. And so my thanks to the sponsor for bringing this bill here today for us to vote on. And if you're a Vietnam veteran, if you're a veteran, of course, but please know you have my thanks and sincerest gratitude. Thank you.
Representative Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
An honor to serve with you.
I want to thank Rep. Sullivan for bringing this forward. I want to thank him for serving this nation then and for his continued service to this nation now. That war was defining for our nation in many ways. It was the last time that the draft was utilized, when the ordinary citizen knew full well and felt the impact of service and war. We learned some hard lessons around an insurgency fight then. AirCav rotary wing assets proved their mettle and value on the battlefields. And for those of you that served, you'll know this if you ain't Cav. And we as a nation, I hope, learned from our shameful treatment of those veterans. I hope we hold tight to those lessons of separating specific politics and decisions of elected leaders from those in uniform. My uncle Basil Rivera served during Vietnam in the 101st. Growing up, he always seemed the most severe and quiet of my relatives. And I noticed a specific difference after I served. There was an instant bond, a brotherhood or a sisterhood that comes, a type of family that forms from it. So again, I rise in support of this. I want to thank Representative Sullivan for his work on this bill and everything else he does for our communities. Thank you.
Representative Exum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Real quickly, I don't have very much to add to what everybody else has shared about the Vietnam veterans. I just want to share a quick story about my older brother, Alfred Exum Jr., that served in the 82nd Airborne in 1969. And just the fact that before he served in 1969, he was a little rambunctious, a little rowdy at times, some would say. And when he came back from that war, it changed him to be more focused. His attitude was calmer, and he used to play the drums in a R&B band before he served in Vietnam. Didn't play very much afterwards because serving in the 82nd Airborne Heavy Artillery, he lost most of his hearing in his left ear and could no longer play. So I join everyone else that has spoken in thanking Representative Sullivan for bringing this bill forward. Thank you.
Representative Soper.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
Honor to serve with you.
I also rise in support of this bill, and thank you, Representative Sullivan, for bringing this to our attention. As some of you know, I have been an avid tennis player throughout my life, and I, for many years, played in a tennis league called the One Up, One Down. And my tennis partner was paralyzed from the waist down. He had been shot out of his helicopter, and he told me that he knew right away in Vietnam that he was paralyzed and would never walk again. However, when he returned back to the United States, he was one of those guys who must have hit it off well with the nurse at the hospital, because they ended up getting married and coming to Delta. But he didn't let his handicap prevent him from living life to the fullest. He went on to become Delta's city manager. He invented a special ski that to this day is still considered one of the best for individuals who are paralyzed. He modified his wheelchair for tennis to be able to slide across or wheel across the court faster. But there was one thing that Rick was really good about. He never talked about his Vietnam experience. We talked about a lot of things. But aside from him describing the accident or being shot out of a helicopter, he never talked about anything else about Vietnam, and yet we played hours of tennis together. And that shows the impact. I mean, it's not just him, but other veterans I know from Vietnam or from World War II, but particularly Vietnam, just the difficulties there. And I think about, I've been doing some renovation at my house, and the lead contractor was also a Vietnam War veteran. And I asked him a little bit about his experience there, and he told me one day, Matt, is what he said. He said, Matt, I jumped out of an airplane over 100 times in Vietnam. He said, that's the end of what I'm going to tell you. But he also said that his reception when he got into California was he never forgot. He was told to change out of his uniform in the airport. And he said to me, he never forgot going into the airport, taking off his uniform, throwing it in the trash can, and putting on his blue jeans and t-shirt, realizing that the military and his friends had warned him that if you don't do this, you will be assaulted, you will be spat upon, you will not be welcomed back to the United States. And that is unacceptable. And that's why I'm very glad to see this bill here today. We cannot make up for the wrongs of how our veterans were treated coming back from Vietnam, but hopefully this is just a tiny step in being able to recognize their service for our great country and our great state. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 24. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
The House will come back to order. Mr. Gregorio, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report it as under consideration the following attached bills being the second reading thereof and next following recommendations thereon. House Bill 1046 as amended, House Bill 1129 as amended, House Bill 1148 as amended, House Bill 1178 passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 24, Senate Bill 79 as amended, passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Representative Doherty. There are no amendments at the desk. The question before us is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Judah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Judah votes yes. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote? Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Pico, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Pico votes no. Representative Hanks and Van Beber. Please close the machine. With 43 aye votes, 20 no votes, and 2 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. The next order of business on the calendar is consideration of resolutions. I don't have my calendar. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the Senate Joint Resolution 6.
SJR 21-006 by Senators Zenzinger and Fenberg, also Representatives Escar and Garnett, concerning a request to the Supreme Court of the State of Colorado to render its opinion upon a question regarding House Bill 21-1164.
Thank you, Mr. Gregorio.
Yeah, it's good.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I move Senate Joint Resolution 6.
What? To the resolution.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. And members, this goes back to the question that we had around House Bill 1164 that we passed on third reading last week. The way that our process works here in the legislature is to form the basis for an interrogatory to the Colorado Supreme Court. We move a bill through one chamber and get it to through second reading in the second chamber, and that's what we've done. Then the Senate passed this resolution, which is the interrogatory to us, and once if we pass a resolution today, then that forms the process that the legislature has to send a constitutional question to the Supreme Court. We're doing this really out of respect for the process and making sure that out of the 178 school districts that are out there, that we aren't moving too quickly and that we get that question answered. And again, really the question is the phase out of these credits brings in a fundamental constitutional question into play about Tabor and prior voter approval. And so this resolution is the vehicle for that interrogatory, and I would urge an aye vote.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Members, the resolution before you lays out very clearly our case for why we believe the school district total program mill levy reductions that occurred throughout the 90s and early 2000s violated state statute, and the underlying assumption that the General Assembly may correct this error by requiring districts to reset their mill levies to the levels at which they would have been but for the unauthorized reductions without requiring the school district to obtain additional voter approval. We also just want to make sure that you fully understand this is simply the resolution to ask the Supreme Court to weigh in on this question. That's what you're voting on today, whether or not to send this question to the Supreme Court.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Representative Bockenfeld.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
And it's an honor to serve with you.
Members, this resolution was set up by House Bill 20-1418 and House Bill 21-1164. What this is it is an end run around the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, and time and time again, the voters of this state have requested that the Taxpayer Bill of Rights be protected.
please vote no on this resolution.
Representative Ransom.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I am also going to urge a no vote on this resolution. I have not made any secret of the fact that I think the voters have made it so clear to us that the Taxpayer Bill of Rights is integral to our state. It was passed many years ago, I agree with that. However, it's been upheld multiple times at the ballot box since then. The voters have let us know that they want the chance to be able to vote on tax increases. They want to know why we want to raise tax increases. They want to know how we're going to spend the money. The issue here is that the underlying bill, Senate Bill 1418, House Bill 1418 last year, as opposed to us raising taxes, we literally were forcing the local school districts to raise taxes if they didn't meet our arbitrarily set mill levy number of 27. So if our local school districts, and please look at the list, folks, both sides of the aisle, look at the list of the school districts that are in your House district, you very likely have one or more school districts in your House district that are below that required level of 27. If they are below that, what we are forcing them to do is go raise their taxes. Now, that being said, they do have to have an election, et cetera, but it still is an end run around the Taxpayer Bill of Rights because we're not accepting the responsibility for the school funding level that we are setting. We're forcing the local governments to raise their taxes. And as I remember what I heard way back when we were first talking about this issue, and we've been talking about this issue for years, just so you know, long before House Bill 1418 came to this body last year. There was questions about how local school districts could meet these requirements that we were setting. We don't know what a local school district may have passed a year or two ago. Just think, there are elections coming through your local school districts, your local counties, your local improvement districts that raise taxes at any given point. That's what the Taxpayer Bill of Rights has us do. What the taxpayers have told us they want us to do is let them know what we're going to do with the money that we're asking for them. But think about it. A local improvement district may have been formed to build some roads or lay some water lines, bring in city water into a semi-rural area, maybe improve a fire district, whatever. There are overlaying special districts and local improvement districts and even HOAs. There's and then along with school districts and county and then city and town districts that are all within our House districts, that our House districts overlay those. And they may have just passed a bond issue, say 2 years ago, to do something else. And they may have known that their bonds, that their mill levies and their bonds were going to be higher for the next 5 years or whatever. But now we're coming in and forcing them to say, we're saying to them, you have to hold another election because we insist that you raise your mills to 27 for your local schools because we don't want to backfill you anymore. And there has been a partnership for many years where there was the local share and the state share for schools. We've been handling that for many years. I get it that there were some innate issues that could be fixed, that could make this better, but let me tell you folks, this is not the way to do it. So with that, I urge a no vote on this. This is just another chance for us to let the Supreme Court and let the people of Colorado know that we have their backs, that we are not trying to go in and say we need more money every time that we feel like we need more. I would actually suggest that we lower the local share. If we think that some people aren't paying enough, let's lower the ones that are paying more. I would say that might be something that our bosses the taxpayers of Colorado would actually appreciate. So with that, thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I urge a no vote.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. And just important that we just set the record. The reason we're doing this is because the voters have already debruced. Remember, we had that conversation down here. The homework that you guys had was to go home and think about what would it be like if it was a D, your last name. Like, what do you guys want to be remembered by? But remember, these districts have already debruced. Okay, so we're asking, given that most of the school districts attained voter approval, they already attained voter approval to retain all excess property tax revenue, but then were required without legal authority to subsequently reduce their total program mill levies. We're asking the Supreme Court, because the voters already approved of keeping the excess tax revenue, we're asking, can the General Assembly, having already mandated that those school districts reset their total program mill levies to the levels that would have been in effect, but for the unauthorized reductions, now require school districts to A, gradually eliminate the temporary property tax credits, or B, do so without, again, obtaining voter approval? So that's the question. The voters have already weighed in, but due to what happened in the middle of the 2000s, we are asking the Supreme Court, do they need to weigh in again? This is a very responsible thing for the General Assembly to do, and I would urge an aye vote.
Thank you. Representative Geithner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem and members. I also rise in opposition to this as well. I spoke on the previous bill that we heard, 1164, and I mentioned this very same thing, and that is that Tabor is quite clear. The Taxpayers' Bill of Rights is quite clear, and it says if there is an increase in the mill levy from the previous year, that requires to go back to the people. I don't think anybody in here is arguing that whether there was an error or there wasn't an error. I think that the only appropriate thing to do is to go to those taxpayers, not the Supreme Court. The Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, like I said, was very clear. If 1164 institutes a tax credit of reduction, well, then technically your mill levy is going up from the year prior. Therefore, the only way we can be in compliance with the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights is to put this before the people. And so I do urge a no vote.
Thank you. Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair, esteemed colleagues. I asked the bill sponsors to help me understand something. As a rural legislator, I'm very concerned about the school districts in my rural counties. If in previous time they did make a decision to debruce, then that decision has been made, and I do understand that. My concern is if we move forward with this as a solution and then those mill rates ratchet up or the obligation at the local level is forced to come up, how do my rural school districts deal with that? How do my rural school districts deal with that inevitability if we continue to attack the foundations and framework of rural Colorado? We all know that school districts are paid for by primarily property tax and other special district taxes that are allocated at the local level. And then there's the backfill at the state level, as I understand it. But if we do things where I live and where my people are from to reduce our valuation, to attack rural Colorado where we are rendered near worthless because we can't produce, because we can't do the things we do to keep our valuations high in our rural properties. And I pointed out earlier that we don't have these large urban sectors with all these homes. We have very few homes and a lot of open space and land. And oh, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue to take land away from the private sector to go to public spaces, we erode that tax base. And everybody seems to forget that as we move forward. There are many attacks, direct and indirect, on rural Colorado that affect this. So I'm going to ask it, and I'm sure that the sponsors have a good answer, because I really need to know. What happens to my school districts if we move forward What happens to us when we have to raise that mill levy? Maybe we can't. Maybe the people can't do it out there anymore because we're dying on the vine. I don't know. I'm really genuinely concerned, so please help me understand that so I can decide which way to go on this.
Thank you. Madam Majority Leader Eskar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I just want to be absolutely clear that the issue at hand around the mill levy inequities has nothing to do with rural versus urban. There's actually no rhyme or reason as to where a school district is sitting at in their mill levies right now. It's a system that has been broken for a very long time. It's a conversation we've been having long before I even got here of how do we make this equal. You have a lot of school districts in your area because I know your district is very big. I guarantee you there's districts in your area who are already sitting at the 27 mills. What that means, just like here in Pueblo, both of my school districts are sitting at 27 mills. We're not a rich community. We don't have a massive tax base when it comes to our schools. So we're sitting at the maximum number of mills right now. There's other districts who do have a higher tax base who are sitting at 4 mills. So we're actually putting in more in Pueblo than some of those wealthier areas into the base. So this is really just looking at different ways to make sure that we can find a way to look at the inequitable system right now that exists, find a way forward, make sure that we're able to really find a way to make sure that all of our kids are getting the funding they deserve. I also want to make sure you understand that the Rural School Alliance is the one who came up with this idea. They're the ones who brought this forward to us and said, we think this might be a better way to go. We want to ask the Supreme Court to weigh in to make sure that the people's voices that we heard when they debriefed are heard. We're moving this forward today. Again, this is simply just asking the Supreme Court to help us weigh in before we move forward with any policy that we're doing here in this Capitol.
Representative Barkenfeld.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Here's how I'd like you to look at this. You were maybe asked by your school district a couple years ago to consider raising your mill levy for the school district, and you looked at it and it was like buying a car. Can I afford the payment? And you based it on the data that you had in front of you that day, and you decided that you wanted to buy that car and you wanted to finance it over 5 years. And then after looking at your budget, you decided, you know what? I can also afford to buy my spouse a new car because the numbers still work. And so then you go in and you buy your spouse a new car. And then on that original loan on that car you bought, the bank comes back and says, you know what? We're not comfortable with a 5-year amortization on that automobile. We're going to move it to 4, and we're going to raise your monthly payment. What does that do to your budget? It throws it substantially out of kilter. And that's what they're doing. They're going and they're raising in certain school districts the mill levy every year for the next 19 years till you get to that 27 mills. And I'm going to tell you, if you look at history and if you read this resolution, what they really want it to be at is 40 mills. Because that's what historically it was at before the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, and they feel that it was ratcheted down. They want you to believe that when you take 4 mills out of one district, where 1 mill may be worth $9 million, and you take 8 mills out of another district, where 1 mill is $4.5 million, that you're comparing apples to apples. You're not. Mills are not apples to apples. What is important is the assessed valuation in that district and how much that district contributes towards the millage. Now think about that. The millage that you're going to get in Arapahoe County is going to be a lot different than the millage you're going to get in Washington County, because the assessed valuation of those two counties are worlds apart. So don't let them make you believe because you're only paying 4 mills in one county and 8 mills in another, that it's not equal. That's why the state backfills it, to make sure that the per pupil funding in each one of those counties is consistent. So if you wouldn't like it if a banker changed the terms on your automobile loan and raised your payment, then don't go to our taxpayers and arbitrarily raise their payment here at the legislature. And that's what they're trying to do. You know, you need to ask first, and that's what the taxpayer bill of rights asks you to do. I ask you to vote no.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before the House is the adoption of Senate Joint Resolution 6. Is there any opposition to taking a voice vote? Yes. Seeing opposition, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine for a recorded vote on SJR 6.
Those participating remotely, Representative Judah.
Yes.
Representative Judah votes yes. Representative Jackson.
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Michelson Janae.
Yes.
Representative Michelson Janae votes yes. Representative McLaughlin.
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Pico.
No.
Representative Pico votes no. Please close the machine. With 40 aye votes, 23 no votes, and 1 excuse, Senate Joint Resolution 6 is adopted. Oh, sorry, I thought Ricks was excused. Ricks, how do you vote? I think the machine is closed. Representative Ricks votes yes. With 42 aye votes, 23 no votes, and 1 excuse, Senate Joint Resolution 6 is adopted. Please open up the machine for co-sponsors. Representative Michelson Janae, Representative Judah, Representative McLaughlin, Representative Jackson, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Okay, that brings us back to announcements and introductions. Representative Herod.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To members, I want to today acknowledge Single Parents Day, which is March 22nd, 2021. And I ask that you please read the tribute at length.
State of Colorado, the House of Representatives convened in the 73rd General Assembly hereby recognizes Single Parents Day. The greatest need for every child is to be loved, whether the child lives in a two-parent family or a single-parent family. The dedication and achievements of single parents deserve the highest recognition. The responsibility of raising children in today's society is particularly difficult when it falls on the shoulders of a single parent. The number of single-parent families has more than doubled in the past 25 years. Therefore, the members of the Colorado General Assembly are proud that Colorado has designated Sunday, March 21st, 2021, as Single Parents Day in recognition of the achievements of all single parents.
Representative Herod.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I just wanted to quickly acknowledge Single Parents Day. Please feel free to be seated. As many of you all know, I was raised by a single mom until I was picked up by my amazing father to help raise me through this lovely process that is life and continues, as you know, to raise me because you never stop being that parent. So today I just wanted to honor single parents. I honestly and truthfully cannot imagine what single parents are going through right now through this COVID pandemic. And I think this year we should give a special honor and recognition for all that they are doing in their families, in their households, but also to raise good, strong kids that we have in our society today. I want to note that the first Single Parents Day was on March 21st, 1984. And usually we see a familiar face here, a woman who has brought this legislation forward this tribute
forward every single year in honor of Single Parents Day. Of course, because of COVID, she cannot be here today. So I just want to again thank all of our parents for everything that they've done, especially our single parents. And if you were raised by a single parent, would you just please stand? Great. Thank you all so much. You can see that we are a diverse bunch and are strong in representing what our families have struggled through. So thank you all so much. It's an honor to be able to honor our single parents.
Any further discussion on the tribute? Seeing none, further announcements and introductions. Further announcements, Representative Tatone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was given permission to be excused on Monday, March 29th.
Approved. Thanks, Representative Tatone. Representative Froelich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have received permission to be absent Friday, March 26th afternoon.
Approved. Thanks, Representative Froelich. Representative Caraveo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Health Insurance Committee will hold a special meeting pursuant to House Rule 25J1B on this Friday, March 26th, upon adjournment of floor work. The committee will hear HB 1232. We will coordinate with the Public Health Committee to resolve any conflicts in membership. Thank you.
Representative Arndt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, House Ag, Livestock, and Water will meet in room 107 at 1:30 promptly. We'll just hear two bills, 1181 and 1160. Thank you.
Any further announcements or introductions? Seeing none, Madam Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, good work today. I move that the House stand in recess until later today.
Seeing no objection, the House will stand in recess until later today.